Welcome inside the High School T Press Box. I am Joel Bryant. Another special edition of the High School T Press Box. Today we have the 910 football preview, talking about all the high school football and kind of the Sandhills, southeastern Wilmington area. Of course, we're going to start with Wilmington. We have Tim Hauer on from coastalpreps.com. Tim, for those that may not know you, maybe the first time seeing you on here, kind of give yourself a little bit of a background and tell us where we can find all of your work at.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on. Like you said, Tim Howard, Coastal Preps, cover the schools here in Wilmington, the schools in Brunswick County, and then Pender County as well. So of the public schools, I have 10 that I cover, and I've been doing this since 2018 down here. On my website, it's just coastalpreps.com, and really enjoy having you guys as well, to keep me abreast of everything that's going on in the other parts of the state. I keep a close eye on this area, but it's nice to kind of know what's going on elsewhere in the state as well. And you guys do just an outstanding job. So I really appreciate our relationship that we've built the last couple of years, and always glad to come on and talk about my schools down here.
I appreciate that. Thank you for those kind words. And where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, it's just Coastal Preps. Most of my social media is just, if you search Coastal Preps, you can find it. Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter are what I use the most. And so yeah, I'm pretty active on all three of those social media sites, especially Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it now. During games, I'm always putting out updates. So if anybody's interested in some games down here, try to hit every sports, but obviously on Friday nights, which is what we're talking about right now, I'll be at some kind of game down here in the area, so people can follow and get score updates throughout the night from whichever game I choose that Friday night.
And we'll be hearing from Tim on our post-game show on Friday nights as well again this year. So that'll be good to get his insight those nights as well. So Tim, the theme of these videos we've been doing has just been about realignment of the new conferences that we're kind of trying to all get used to. Obviously, in your area, there's the Big Conference, which has a new name this year, thanks to a very, insightful, intelligent media person with influence. It's now called the Carolina Coast Conference, 6A, 7A, 8A. It used to be called the Mid-Eastern Conference. The problem with that is the conference was not in the middle of the state at all. It was in the southeastern part of the state, so it made no sense why it was called Mid-Eastern. But now it's all changed. It's a good name now. They got an A+ on my conference name grades, and it features West Brunswick in 6A, Ashley in 7A, New Hanover, North Brunswick, Topsail also in 7A, and then Hoggard and Laney in 8A. Let's talk about the name first. I know you're not you're used to the Mid-Eastern name, so let's hear it on the name first, and then we'll get into the football.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I like the name. I just, I wish this name change would have happened when the Brunswick County schools and Topsail entered the conference, several years ago. The fact that it's basically the same teams but a new name is just, and I'm just so used to it. I've been, as an athlete in the conference in the early 2000s to then covering the conference. I'm 20 plus years of just MEC, Mid-Eastern Conference, on everything. And so it's going to take some getting used to, but geographically, I mean, it totally makes sense. It's a cool name. It's something different. It establishes where we are in the state. And so, the more I say it, the more I get used to it. The more I'm starting to enjoy it. I'm still, every once in a while I'll slip up and say Coastal Carolina just because I'm used to, Coastal Carolina school. So I'll say Coastal Carolina Conference. I got to remember Carolina first, Carolina Coast Conference.
Yeah.
But once I get used to that, I think we'll be good. And then, obviously still being able to have kind of a nickname that we can call it the CCC, because it was always the MEC. We can just go CCC now. So, yeah, you did a good job of getting the right people on board to make that change. And so, I applaud you for your efforts there.
Yeah, I just like that. You look at the name now. Carolina Coast, and you just know instantly like where that's going to be,
Yeah.
and it kind of reflects the area that all these schools occupy. So I think people will like it long term,
Yeah.
and I love it. So that's all that matters right now. Football wise, or I guess just generally speaking, we had the question of if they would do the three classifications in this conference. We didn't know at the time if they'd be willing to do that, and of course they ended up doing it with West Brunswick in 6A as the lone 6A here. South Brunswick got moved to a different conference, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But when this was all finalized, what was kind of your first reactions to it?
Yeah, kind of. I think kind of what I expected. I think just with West Brunswick being in that 6A classification, if you look at what other kind of 6A schools there are on the eastern part of the state, it was really going to be difficult for them to find a home because South Brunswick was able to go in with some smaller schools, but can you put a 6A in there with some 4As? It's probably easier for the 6A to go up and play more 7As. There's only two 8As in the conference, so I think it made sense with what they did. Our biggest question always was, what was South Brunswick going to do? And the fact that they were able to find a home. It's an interesting conference. I know we're going to get into it in a little bit. It's got some travel issues for them for sure. But talking to their athletic director and their coaches, I think they're really happy to be in a conference where they feel like they can compete in just about every sport. Whereas in the old Mid-Eastern Conference, softball, baseball, those were kind of the sports that they could compete in. Everything else, it was a bit of a challenge for them. So, so I think this is a conference that's probably here to stay. I mean, I just don't see the Brunswick County schools getting any smaller. I now live in Brunswick County, and I can attest to the fact that they are just continuing to pop up houses. When Leland runs out of space, they're just going to continue to go further south. There's a lot of area between Wilmington and Myrtle Beach. And so I feel like that's all going to get developed at some point. So it wouldn't surprise me, maybe in the next realignment, if South Brunswick's back in this conference. And then same thing up in Hampstead. Topsail's not slowing down. They were one of the rare schools that went from a 1A school to a 4A school in like a two classification span. And now that they're 7A, they're not going anywhere. So I feel like this is the conference that we're going to see for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. And the one caveat to that is I do believe that they are planning on another high school in Brunswick County at some point. If they split them up evenly, maybe that will lower everybody down into that other conference. So we'll just see that long term. But that's a problem for another day.
Right.
This year, though, football wise, it's not just the conference that's changing. There's a lot of changes in here coaching wise, and a couple of them kind of came out of nowhere. So Laney is the new coach. That's going to be Steve Brooks, who was previously the coach at CB Aycock. He was at Jacksonville as an assistant for a while. Topsail, new coach. Chris Schmidt, I believe, is the new coach. He was the defensive coordinator last year. And then New Hanover, Dylan Dimmock leaves after a long stretch there. And now it's John Fuller, who was promoted from his defensive coordinator position. So the three hires that were made, first, were you surprised that those positions opened? And then also, what was your thoughts on the hires?
Yeah. I think two of the three for sure, were surprising to me. I thought Coach Dimmock has been doing it for a long time. He was at Ashley as the very first head coach when that school opened. Then went over to Hoggard and had a nice long run as the offensive coordinator. And then I think kind of his kids were a little bit older. He went to New Hanover to kind of finish out his career, but I knew he was close to getting to the point of retiring. So that position, I don't think surprised me as much. And I think New Hanover made a home run hire there with John Fuller. His defenses have been outstanding ever since he's been the DC, and the players respect him. He was able to keep that staff together. So I think that just made a lot of sense for New Hanover to keep the continuity there and just continue to roll with what they've been doing. They've had some really good seasons. Last couple, around 500, but I expect them to be, one of the upper echelon teams in the CCC this year. Topsail and Laney, yeah, more surprising, I think. I don't think Jack Teachy would have left unless he got the opportunity that he did, which was to go be on a college staff at Texas Tech. And when he was a long time coach at Wofford, so he obviously has college connections. And I think when you get a call like that, you can't turn that down. So I don't think he had intentions of leaving per se, but when an opportunity like that arises, you have to take it. And again, Tops will put the interim tag on Coach Schmidt for a little while, and I don't know that they ever really did interviews. I think they maybe accepted applications and then kind of decided that they felt the best guy for the job was already on staff. And I think Coach Schmidt will do a good job there. That's a bit of a rebuilding process at Topsail, whereas New Hanover kind of has some established pieces that Topsail lost quite a bit from last year, including their all-everything quarterback in Eli Hebron. So they've got to kind of build from the ground up. But I think Coach Schmidt has the patience to be able to do that. I think he really likes this area. And so I think he's kind of in it for the long term to kind of see that rebuild, go through. Laney, again, a little bit surprising. I think maybe people kind of thought that could happen with Coach Little leaving. His youngest son, Colby, had just graduated from Laney. He was able to see both of his sons be the starting quarterback for multiple seasons at Laney, first with Ty and then Colby his last 2 years. So with no kids left, he's got a younger daughter, but she's still in middle school. I think it was probably, he just felt like the right time, speaking to him, just the right time to make this move. He went down and took an assistant job in South Carolina. Again, a story for another day, but we continue to lose great coaches to South Carolina. And I think primarily for the reason of money. I mean, they do a great job of paying their coaches, and we're certainly behind in that area in North Carolina. And so you can't fault a guy for wanting to provide for his family. And I think that was the kind of the main reason for that move. And I think Steve Brooks, a guy that knows kind of this area, not really Wilmington per se, but the eastern part of the state, Jacksonville, Greenville areas. He is going to come in and kind of do the same things I think Coach Little did offensively, which is spread the ball around. They'll run it some, but he wants to be, pretty pass heavy, and they've got great athletes at Laney to be able to do that. And so we'll see how his first year goes. It was a late hire, so sometimes those can be a little rough on the first season as you're trying to instill some new things. But again, I think talking to him at his press conference, he always had a dream of coming down here and coaching a Wilmington school. And so when that Laney job opened up, he was really excited to throw his name in the hat, and then he was able to get the job.
Gotcha. So, strictly football wise, we're looking at another season where Hoggard's the favorite. You think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with what they've got coming back, you look at quarterbacks too. All those schools that we just mentioned, new quarterbacks. So there's a lot of new quarterbacks in this conference. One that doesn't have a new quarterback is Hoggard, and they've got a really good one in Matthew Boring, who had a really great sophomore season and led Hoggard to a deep playoff run. They went up and got beat by Cardinal Gibbons, but he was really fantastic as a sophomore, and he'll have some new weapons around him. Lost, some of his best receivers, and every running back that Hoggard had last year that touched the ball is gone, but like a program like Hoggard, they can find other pieces to come in and fill those voids. One kid that he really did like throwing the ball to last year was Devin Durand, who was another sophomore. They've kind of been doing this thing together since their days at the middle school level. So he'll be kind of that number one receiver this year, Desmond Durand. And then there's a couple different running backs that I think Hoggard will go to. They usually don't have one featured back. They usually have 2 or 3 guys that they like to feature. So they'll do the same things that they always do. They'll run the football. They'll play great defense and great special teams. And then when you add a quarterback like Matthew Boring, who can spread things around, it makes them really, really dangerous. So, yeah, I think in the pecking order, I think Hoggard is pretty easily up at the top. And then I think when you get to the middle tier is when things get a little bit interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Hoggard is definitely the favorite this year. The running back situation is interesting to hear because that was one thing last year that I think that they probably would have wanted more success out of was the run game last year. So if they have a couple of options this year that can help out, that'll be beneficial to them. And the other thing about Hoggard, for anyone that hasn't seen Hoggard play, the one thing you always count on is the size there. It always seems like they always just have some big dudes in their trenches there. Is that going to be the same case this year, Tim?
Yeah. Coach Underwood is really excited about some of his linemen. They've lost the last 2 years. They've lost ACC offensive linemen. They had Jason Smith 2 years ago to go to UNC. He hit the transfer portal and is now at Richmond. And then last year, Gibbs went to just graduated, went to NC State. So yeah, they always seem to have those big guys in the trenches that they can lean on. He mentioned a couple in his preview to me. I'm looking right now. Matthew Green is an offensive lineman that he really likes. He's got a sophomore on here, Dak Smith-Kamesi, that he really likes. So some older guys, some younger guys, and then defensive line. They are just absolutely loaded on defensive line. They've got Everett Hordeman back. He had a bunch of sacks last year. Marshall Chalk was a sophomore who started for him, who had a bunch of sacks last year. So they're really loaded on the defensive line. Offensive line, some new faces, but again, like you said, big guys. They always seem to have really good feet too. One thing I always see with Hoggard, because Craig Underwood, if this is an interesting fact for those that don't know, a couple years he coached the wrestling team. He was also a wrestler in high school, and actually before he became the head football coach, his first head coaching job at Hoggard was the wrestling coach for 2 or 3 years. So I think he always does a really good job with those big guys, and I think that's why they always have such good feet, is because he was a wrestling coach, and so I think he can teach them some of those kind of techniques that go with wrestling, offensive linemen. So I don't know that for a fact, but that's kind of my thought on why I think Hoggard always is pretty good up front.
So with this second or middle tier in the conference, do you think it's going to be the rest of the Wilmington schools and North Brunswick, or do you think North Brunswick is not going to be in that tier? What are you kind of expecting out of that second tier?
Yeah. I think those 4 teams that you just mentioned are kind of, for me, that 2 through 5 spot. Goes through New Hanover, Laney, Ashley, and North Brunswick, and we can you want me to just kind of go through each of those and what I think. We'll start just kind of going alphabetically. We'll start with Ashley, obviously coming off the best season in school history, 9 wins, going to the second round of the playoffs, and actually competing really well with the top seed. Clayton, was it Clayton last year? Or no, it was Cleveland. I'm sorry, Cleveland last year. I think it was 21-3. So really didn't get blown out of the water in that game. Now, you look at what Ashley lost off of that team, and it's quite a bit, especially offensively. Lost their starting quarterback, starting running back, and then just kind of starting do-it-all guy in Quinn Bentley, who was kind of their goal line running, quarterback, and then was a really good safety on the defensive side too. So some pieces to replace. But Coach Lombardi, after talking to him, I talked to him after their scrimmage on Thursday night, and he was really happy with what he saw. They played Whiteville, who's a really good team. Made it to the East Final last year in 2A, and Ashley beat them 13-0 in that Bash at the Beach Jamboree. So he really liked what he saw. Their new running back, Bryson Lovelace, had a great game. I think he probably had about 70 yards in that game. There's a bit of a quarterback battle going on right now between Carter Crawl and Brooks Powell. They kind of split action. I think maybe we'll see that the first week or two of the season until one of them, kind of pulls away, if either one of them does. But it wouldn't surprise me to see two quarterbacks. But the defense has still got a lot back, and I think that's what Ashley's going to kind of hang their hat on early in the season, is the defense, and then kind of let the offense catch up at that point. But I've been telling people, is Ashley going to win 9 games again this year? Maybe not, but is Ashley going to go back to what they were, which is a 1 or 2 win team? No, they're not going to come back to that level. So they may win 6 or 7 games this year, but they're not going back to what they were, which is a 1 or 2 win team. So they're right there in that mix. Laney, we talked about new coach, new system. Again, new quarterback, Ryan Gallagher, will take over, but he's got a big arm, and he's got 2 really good receivers to throw the ball to. Laney hated losing Hampton Roderick last year, who was a standout wide receiver. He had over 1,000 yards as a junior. He got hurt as a senior, but one thing it did was allow 2 younger guys to kind of grow into their roles. Jordan Kuhn and Kilby Thies Dixon both had really good years as wide receivers last year. They're back, so they'll be really featured in the offense. And then they've got a couple running backs as well. Ellis Williams was their leading running back last year, yardage wise. He's back, so Laney's got some things that they can work with offensively, and the defensive coordinator is still the same as last year, so things won't change very much on that side, which I think is a good thing. When you bring in a new coach, if you are going to change some things up, it's always nice to not have to change on both sides of the ball. And so Laney, again, finished second in the conference last year. I think they'll be again in the mix. They had a disappointing end to last season, losing to Ashley in the first round of the playoffs. So that Ashley-Laney game, when that comes up on the schedule, is going to be a big one for the Buccaneers. They'll certainly have that one circled on their calendar this year to try to get some payback. New Hanover, again, another team, new quarterback. Tanari Johnson is the kid that looks like he's going to be taking kind of the first team snaps for them. They did use another kid in the Jamboree, but I think Tanari is kind of the guy that they're going to go with. They get tons of options on the outside for New Hanover. Quincy Waddell is a 2-way player that is really dynamic with the ball. Both of their touchdowns in their Jamboree that they just played came from running back Tony Nelson Clark. I think he's going to have a big year this year. He was kind of the second guy. Yeah, it's a great name. He was kind of their second guy last year, but he'll be the featured back this year, and they're going to lean on him pretty heavily. One thing about New Hanover is they're always really good in the secondary. I think they've got 3 guys back on their team that were on my all-coastal preps team last year. So they're going to be really good in the secondary, and they always seem to be really good at linebacker as well. So even though Coach Fuller has taken over head coaching duties, I think he's still going to have a hand in what that defense does. And so I don't expect them to take any steps back defensively. So again, I think Ashley, lead on the defense early, let the new quarterback get his feet wet in the first couple weeks of the season. Then maybe you start opening things up a bit later in the season. And then at North Brunswick, they've got their quarterback back, Jonah Campbell, a good-sized kid, a baseball player. He's about 6'3", has a really good arm, can also run the ball. So he's probably the best dual-threat quarterback in the conference this year. And then they've got an offensive lineman that's enormous that is already committed to Virginia Tech, and some good skill position guys as well. So I think North Brunswick, a little disappointed with how they did last year. I think expectations were pretty high last year, and I don't think they met those expectations. And talking to some of the coaching staff over there, I think they like this senior class's leadership a little bit more than they liked some of the previous years' leadership. So I think they feel like this senior class is really focused and want to kind of turn the tides a little bit and compete with these Wilmington schools again. They had a nice little run there where they were beating some of the Wilmington schools and then struggled against them last year. So I think they want to get back to being in all those games and finding a way at the end to win. So yeah, those four schools, I think when they play each other, I'm expecting some really exciting matchups between them.
Gotcha. And I know we touched on Tops a little bit, so we're going to talk about West Brunswick now. West Brunswick being 6A, obviously tough spot being in this conference. They're playing against 7As and 8As. But I'm sure Coach Handy's made some progress down there. What do you make of that team?
He really has. I mean, again, I think he inherited a really tough situation at West Brunswick, kind of a lot like Coach Schmidt has at Topsail. I mean, there was not much left in the cupboard when he got there, so he had to kind of start from scratch, and he started some freshmen and some sophomores his first year, and now those guys are juniors and seniors this year. So I think you'll see West Brunswick be a lot more competitive in these games. It's a tough conference, though. I mean, to be the only 6A, it's going to be difficult to win some of these games, but I don't think they're going to get outmatched and, the physicality of the league, I think, got to them the last couple of years. I think they'll be more physical this year and a little be able to hang a little bit more in the trenches than they have in years past. Josiah Borton, I think, is now in his third year starting at the quarterback position. They've always got a good running back, two or three really good running backs that they can kind of lean on. The problem down there has been their defense the last couple of years. They just give up way too many points, and so I'll be interested to see how they fare on that side of the football. If they can clean up some things on that end and maybe get some of their best athletes, playing on that side of the football. I could see them winning a couple games in the conference, and maybe being a spoiler to one or two of those teams that we talked about in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, the thing is that middle tier we were talking about for a while there, it's so in flux between graduated stars and then coaching changes that there's some opportunity there for the taking there for West Brunswick. I'm going to flip over into this other conference though. So the new Southeastern 3A, 4A, 5A that does have South Brunswick in it as the only 5A. So kind of reverse fortune for them. They instead of their kind of sister school in West Brunswick, they are the biggest school in this conference. So they should theoretically have more depth, more numbers than these 3A and 4A teams they're playing. Granted, there are some good historic programs at the 3A level in this conference. So I just kind of want your impressions of South Brunswick, and do you think that this is going to be in a situation where they're instantly vying for a conference championship, or do you think that they will still have a battle with the White Bulls and South Columbuses, and even Red Springs should be better this year?
Yeah. I think kind of like the CCC. I think Whiteville is the prohibited favorite in that conference. South Columbus had a great season last year, but they graduated quite a bit from what they did. So yeah, I think South Brunswick is right there, though. A notch below Whiteville. I think they go from being, I believe, a 2-win team last year to I could certainly see them winning 7 games this year, because they weren't a terrible team last year, but again, they were playing teams that were double their size, triple their size, and so having the opportunity to play now some schools with similar numbers, I think is going to be really beneficial for South Brunswick. It was interesting talking with some people over there. They've said in the past, their inability to win games in the Mid-Eastern Conference was keeping some of the kids in the school from wanting to play football. Well, now that they're out of that conference and in a conference with teams that they feel like they can probably beat, some of those kids have come back to football now. So having that success is is a big thing for high school kids. I mean, they don't want to go out there and be a part of a team that's going to lose by 40, 50 points. Not every
Yeah.
kid, but there are some kids that don't want to do that. And so, this new conference, West Bladen, not a typically great team. Some other teams in that conference, I think Fairmont has been down a little bit in the last couple of years. So there's certainly some opportunities to win some games for South Brunswick, and they've got their starting quarterback coming back, Jaden Daniels. He's got a great arm.
Not the one on the Commanders.
Not the one on the Commanders, but he also has a strong arm. This Jaden Daniels has a good arm, and so I think South Brunswick certainly slotting into that 2-3 spot would not surprise me at all in this new conference.
And look, I will say, obviously, competitive wise, they're going to be winning more games this year. But I will point out that non-conference wise, I noticed they did not pick up any of the Wilmington schools in non-conference, and I would be concerned about what might happen with their RPI situation this year, given the fact that they didn't pursue, or maybe they did pursue them. I don't know, what the talks were, but the fact that they don't have any Wilmington schools on the schedule, that might not be so beneficial as their RPI. But I guess we'll find out. We'll find out in a couple of months here how their RPI is going to look with this new setup.
Yeah. For them, the non-conference was difficult because not being in the same conference with the other two Brunswick County schools, that automatically takes up two of your non-conference games, right? You have to play North and you have to play West. Those are your big gate games. So it probably didn't give them a ton of opportunity to try to go grab. Do you have their schedule in front of you? I think Trask is one of their other non-conference games.
At West Brunswick week 1, then North Brunswick's the county rivalries, and then Trask is week 3. But these other two games, to me, they're playing at Richlands, then home against Purnell Sweat. Maybe it's one of those games where I would have tried to maybe get an Ashley or get it just for a one-off game, so you can still pick up more of that CCC conference kind of pluses in the RPI, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, there's also a reality where they win 7 games and it doesn't matter because their own win percentage is going to be good. But I don't know. It's a new era. We're going to find out pretty soon. So speaking of Trask, I do want to hit on Trask and Pender before we go, as you covered those teams. Trask is now in the. Let me pull it up. Trask is now in. I'm still getting used to everything. They're in the new East Central 3A.
East Central. Yep.
And Pender is also in that. They're both 3As. Just give some quick thoughts on those two schools and how they're looking this year.
Yeah, so I'll start with Trask new coach Ty Lovett comes over from Topsail. He's young. I think he's 27, 28 years old, but his dad was a longtime coach in the state, so has a good pedigree, is getting his first opportunity. And so there's always question marks, right, with a first-year coach, especially that young, how they're able to handle things. But they've got some good talented pieces over there at Trask. He's got a basketball player that's come out that has never played football before that's going to be his quarterback, but a really good athlete. So I think he's going to be able to kind of run the ball a little bit. They had a good sophomore class last year. Kamaje Wilson was one of their running backs that was really good. He was a sophomore. He's also a linebacker. He's back. And so they've got Gio Driggers. I think he's a kid that maybe could start getting on some Division I radars. He's a really big athletic kid, a good basketball player as well. Offensive and defensive lineman. He's got great size. So, again, new to the sport of football. I don't think he ever played football until he came to high school. And so he's only a junior this year. So wouldn't surprise me to see him maybe get on some radars of some teams this year. So, again, tough conference. You got East Duplin in there. You got Southwest Onslow. Clinton is not going to be what they were last year for long.
I'm pretty confident that Clinton will be improved from the what was it, 0-10 season last year?
Yes, and then
not gonna happen again.
Yeah, and then their conference rival Pender. So it's not an easy conference schedule by any means, but I can certainly see Trask having around a 500 record, which I think in any first year coach's would kind of be happy with when they're coming in and kind of trying to change culture. Pender had a great season last year. They went to, if I'm not mistaken, I think the East Final, or at least the fourth round, and just went up against the nemesis of every small school in Eastern North Carolina, Tarboro, and just ran out of gas. But they had Jeremiah Johnson last year, who was the absolute workhorse of all workhorses. I mean, he carried the ball about 40 times a game, and finished with over 2,000 yards and some crazy amount of touchdowns, 40 some touchdowns, 50 some touchdowns. So they're going to have to find a way to replace him. And talking to Coach Eanes, he said, do not expect a 2,000-yard rusher this year. He said, I got about 4 or 5 guys that I'm hoping can get about between 600 and 1,000 yards apiece. So he's going to spread the ball out much more this year, but they're not going to change their philosophy. They're still going to be an option type team, wing T option, stuff like that type team. You'll always take the under on passing attempts for Pender. It probably is usually around 2, and you usually take the under. They'll throw it maybe once a game, but they're going to run. They're going to be a run heavy team, and he likes the kind of athletes he's got there. So he always has done a good job. Both of his stops, he was there a while back and then came back. He's done a great job at Pender. I expect them to kind of be in the mix. I think East Duplin probably the favorite in that conference, but Pender, Clinton, that Southwest Onslow, that should be a good little battle there for second place.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting one for sure. Well, Tim, I really appreciate your time today. Thanks for coming on here and sharing your knowledge about your Wilmington area and surrounding area as well. Again, where can people find you and find all of your work?
Yeah, coastalpreps.com. It is a subscription-based website, but one good thing I do is it's called a free on 3 day. So if you ever come to my website on the 3rd, the 13th, or the 23rd of the month, whatever I post on that day is free to view. So if there's ever a big Friday night, with a 3 in it, come over to coastalpreps.com and you'll be able to check out the photos and the recap for free. But again, Twitter, Instagram, those things are all the places that you can follow me. Facebook as well. Just search Coastal Preps and you'll be able to find it.
Awesome. Thanks again, Tim. And next, we're going to go a little bit north. We're going to talk to Chris Miller from the Jacksonville Daily News. Chris, first of all, thank you for coming on and doing this for us. We're going to talk about the schools in the Onslow County area. Before we get going, where can people find you and find your work at?
Visit jdnews.com. Just try to, like all of us, try to provide the best local sports coverage as we can get or as we can provide. And so, yeah, jdnews.com. And I invite high school sports fans to visit the website and take a look at the cool stuff that we have.
Awesome. So with the new realignment this year, we have all new conferences for every media member in the state to get used to. First, what's your impression of the new conferences and how do you think they fit your area teams?
Well, I think the big thing, there was a lot of controversy as far as the realignment earlier this year with Swansboro. Swansboro was supposed to be in that big Carolina conference with Jacksonville and White Oak and the Greenville schools, New Bern, because they were a 6A school going to be in a 6A, 7A conference. But they appealed, gave some compelling arguments, were denied, and then I guess their last Hail Mary, they got it approved. So now they're going to be in that coastal 5A, 6A conference with Dixon, Croatan, Havelock, Northside. So they're going to be the only 6A school in that 5A conference. So there was a lot of the Swansboro folks were very happy about that, very pleased. There were a lot of other folks that weren't too happy about that, and so that was kind of the big story kind of going in, but. I think if you're somebody like Jacksonville, I mean, you've already played these Greenville schools and New Bern the last 4 or 5 years or so anyway. No big deal. If you're somebody like White Oak, that is going to be a little bit of a tougher challenge going from the coastal 3A to the big Carolina. And then if you're Havelock, you're moving from the Big Carolina to the Coastal Conference with West Carteret, Swansboro, Richlands, like I said, Dixon. So you're a very big fish, fish in a small pool, a small batch of water. So that's
Yes.
that's going to be interesting to see how Havelock handles that.
Yeah, they're for sure going to be the favorite in that conference. I would assume. I've heard some good things about their defense so far in preseason. Let's start with the two schools in this Big Carolina Conference. So Jacksonville's coming off that 12-win season last year. White Oak's coming off the 9-win season. I think both those teams had some good seniors on last year's teams. Everyone knows about Damon June from Jacksonville, the kid at Carolina now. We'll start with Jacksonville. What's your biggest storyline for them this year?
Well, the thing about Jacksonville is they don't really rebuild; they reload. And the key for Jacksonville is, last year you had Damon June, you had an experienced quarterback, you had an experienced number 2 running back and receivers. Excuse me. These guys that are coming up now, the seniors and the leaders now, might have not been the big time stars, but they got a lot of playing time last year, either in lopsided games or even in competitive games. And let's not forget that you had 4 or 5 weeks of practice during the playoffs that really bode well for these younger guys. So they're going to come in with a lot of experience, a lot of things that they want to prove. They want to show that they can continue the winning tradition for Jacksonville. And I think some people are kind of thinking Jacksonville's not going to be as good as last year, but that they're motivated to show otherwise, and it'll be interesting to see how they do. As far as White Oak, back-to-back 9-win seasons. They've lost the first round of the state playoffs the last 2 years, despite winning the conference title. They're looking forward to being in that conference with the Greenville schools in Jacksonville. They know they're going to be an underdog in most of their conference games, but I'm just looking at their schedule. They have a chance to be 5-0 going into conference play. Now, again, there's a big difference between what they're going to do in non-conference and conference, but if they can go 5-0, 4-1 in conference play and give them a little bit of momentum going forward, who knows? Maybe they can steal a game against Jacksonville or steal a game against maybe J.H. Rose or Conley or a team like that. So I think White Oak also has a lot to prove as well, having graduated a lot of guys. But they do have quite a few skill guys coming back as well, especially their quarterback.
Yeah. Well, both of White Oak's losses last year were in one-score games, so that's a positive sign as well. And I'm sure that they want to get Rose back specifically after that one playoff game where, White Oak was probably favored in that game, and Rose kind of won in an upset. What's your kind of feeling on that Big Carolina Conference? Do you think this is do you think J.H. Rose out of Greenville might be the favorite? Or do you think Jacksonville can kind of defy the doubt this year?
Well, Jacksonville coach Bo Williams kind of did give me a little bit of a grief because I have them going 7-2 with the 2 losses to Rose and New Bern in conference play. Of course, Jacksonville only plays 9 games for the 5th straight year because they just can't find a 10th game. But I think J.H. Rose, I think they won 4 games in the regular season last year, and they made it all the way to the 3rd or 4th round of the playoffs last year. So they do have some guys coming back. I think they're going to be one of the favorites, and I mean you never can count past overlook New Bern. I mean New Bern's well coached, and they're going to be an alpha dog in that conference as well. So I think at the moment, if you were to ask me, I think Jacksonville right now would finish 3rd. Which is not bad, but I mean they're aiming for more, and they think they can compete for another conference title and make another playoff run.
Well, let's go into that Coastal 5A, 6A. So your local teams in that conference are Dixon, Northside, Richlands, and Swansboro. West Carteret, Rotan, and Havelock, I'm sure you have thoughts on as well, but they're technically in our 252 area, but you can give thoughts on them if you'd like. What's the biggest storyline in this conference this year?
Well, the coaches had their coaches meeting last week in Jacksonville, and I covered that and talked to all the coaches. And I kind of joked with the other coaches about, forget about the elephant being in the room. Let's talk about the ram in the room, and that's being the Havelock Rams. Brett Wooten, the head coach. I think it's not gone unnoticed that Havelock is the clear favorite to win that conference, and if they don't win that conference, or even if they lose a conference game, something weird must have happened because
Yeah.
I mean nobody sees Havelock losing a conference game, and that's not throwing shade against the other teams, but I mean you're talking about a state power, well coached, a ton of great athletes, and a team that looks to win a state title every year. So being in a conference with other schools that are not used to much football success. So other sports might be a little bit of a different story in this conference, but football, there's Havelock, and then there's everybody else. But look, Coach Wooten said the right things. They're taking it one game at a time. They're not looking past. They're not trying to disrespect anybody on their opponent. They know they're good. Havelock's always going to be good, but they're worried about taking care of one day at a time and getting better for the playoffs. The weird thing is, I thought Northside going in would be the clear number 2, but West Carteret was the coach's pick to finish number 2. They have their quarterback coming back. I'm sure they have a little bit of a bitter taste in their mouth, having lost to Jacksonville last year in the first round of the playoffs when they were down like 42-0 in the first quarter. So they'll be motivated. Northside has struggled in recent seasons. A part of it, they've had probably the toughest schedule in the state the last 4 or 5 seasons. They still have a tough non-conference schedule again this year, but it will ease up a little bit playing teams that they should be able to beat. So I think Northside will have a chance to win a few more games this year. Richlands is kind of a little bit of a toss-up. New head coach, Pat Bird, who guided him to 3 straight winning seasons. Excuse me. Went back to Jacksonville to be the OC there, offense coordinator there. So, they have a lot to prove under Coach Bill Good. Dixon, Kelly Davis, he's done a great job. They're always going to be competitive. They don't start out. They kicked off the season the last 2 years against East Duplin, which is always a hard challenge.
Yeah.
But they'll have a little bit of an easier slate this year. So I expect them to maybe win a couple games, and then Croatan. I mean, Andrew Gurley does a great job, getting those guys together, getting those guys to work hard and buy in. They don't do much fancy stuff. They smash mouth football and
solid.
Solid. They don't mind chewing up time of possession. So, but they'll throw in a couple of pass plays here and there throughout the season, and but they're always a wild card because they always play hard. And then you have Swansboro, which is 0-19 the last 2 years. Their head coach, Rodney Beasley, goes into his second year. He gave me a little bit of a hard time when I picked them to only win 1 game this year. And again, all friendly, all in fun. But he said that they're gonna they have a lot to prove as well, a lot to prove this year as well. So we'll see how the Pirates do in Swansboro this year as well.
Yeah, for sure. I know you also cover. You also cover this East Central 3A 4A conference. So Southwest Oslo is in this conference. You also cover East Duplin. What are your thoughts on those 2 teams?
Well, I think just going in, the fact that Wallace Rose Hill and James Keenan are no longer in the East Central Conference.
Yeah, it feels weird, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Interesting point. East Duplin has always been in the East Central Conference in some way, shape, or form since the school was built. So, and that was in the 1960s. They've never been in another conference. Now, the East Central has been a 2A conference, has been a 3A conference. Now it's a 3A, 4A conference. But East Duplin High School has never been in a conference outside of the East Central Conference since the school was built, like I said, in the 60s. So that's an interesting little piece of information. I just think you don't know how good Clinton's going to be. They had some struggles last year with all those transfers and the coach leaving. You would think maybe they'll be a little bit better than they were last year, but I think you still have to give East Duplin, make them the favorite to win the conference until Clinton can show what they can do. And I think Southwest Onslow, they've been down the last few years, but they got a new head coach in Zach Garvey, who's a graduate from Southwest. Excuse me. And, he's brought in a lot of excitement to the program, and he's a weight room junkie, so he gets in the weight room with those kids and works hard with them. And I think there's some excitement at the corral in Southwest as well. So I think the conference will be decided by East Duplin and Southwest, and I think they square off the first conference game of the season this year. So that's going to be interesting.
That will be interesting. Yeah, I do expect Clinton to be better this year. I mean, frankly, it's hard to be worse than they were last year. But I know that was such a young team last year, and and now that Coach Boykin is going to be their second year, I'm expecting them to. I think they'll finish in the top half of this conference, despite how last year went. The Pender schools, I think, might be a little bit down. Those schools were very senior heavy last year, and South and Norm, not too sure about them. With Southwest also, the interesting thing about them is I feel like they've had some really good years on JV lately, and it just hasn't quite translated. What's your suspicion as to why that's been?
Yeah, and that's been a kind of an argument or complaint, is that the last several years they've had solid JV teams, and it just hasn't resonated on Friday nights for varsity. And again, I mean, it's JV. I mean, we all know that some of your really great athletes who are freshmen, sophomores will play varsity at a young age, so that may play a part in it. Nobody at the corral can kind of put their finger on it, but like I said, there is a lot of excitement this year at Southwest. Again, Zach Garvey, was named head coach earlier this year, and it really helped that he took over really early in the process, so he could kind of go ahead and build the foundation and lay out what he wanted to accomplish this year. So there's excitement for at Southwest, and they don't open up with Jacksonville this year for the first time in 15, 16 years. So they're not afraid of competition, but they knew as they're trying to rebuild that it doesn't help going against Jacksonville.
Start off on that foot. Yeah,
and starting out 0-1 every year. I mean, look, it's one game, and coaches will always say it's one game doesn't dictate a season. But when you're trying to rebuild a program, they're starting out 1-0 as opposed to 0-1 does make a big difference. And if you're Southwest and you can open up with the win over Richlands this year, I mean, you haven't beaten Richlands in 3 years, which is history in itself. But if you can win this year, start out 1-0. I mean, there's some winnable games in non-conference. You can possibly be 2-3, 4-0 going into conference play. So that will that's what the Stallions are trying to do.
Good to hear. Any other teams we missed that I didn't ask you about?
I mean, you're looking at the Coastal Plains 1A, 2A conference. I mean, I do with June. They've made some major steps going forward in recent years. I mean, they went 5-6 years without winning a game, or maybe winning one game. They made some major steps. They have a new head coach as well. It seems like they go through a new head coach every other year or so, just because of the transient nature. But they do have a couple guys coming back that that help build the program. So I'll be interested to see how they do there. And then 8-man Liberty Christian over at Richlands. Excuse me. They're in their third year. They won 2 games last year, and the way the independent league kind of did their redistricting and everything, realignment. Liberty plays 4 teams twice, and a couple of those teams they beat last year pretty handily. So Liberty Christian thinking they can win some games this year. So it's an exciting time to be a high school football fan in Onslow County.
Awesome. Well, Chris, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on and sharing with us about your area. Chris is the guy out there. So again, Chris, tell us where people can find your work.
jdnews.com, and I try to update stuff daily: football, soccer, volleyball, photos. I mean, Joel, you know all about that stuff. I mean, so it's definitely try to keep that stuff updated as much as possible.
Awesome, Chris. Well, thanks again, and best of luck this season.
All right, thank you, my friend.
And now we're joined by James Moore Jr., the writer from the Fayetteville Observer. James, you've been doing a great job down there in the Sand Hills. Tell people about yourself and how long you've been doing it there in Fayetteville.
Thank you. Now, it's been going on 2 years now. October will be 2 years since I've been in the Fayetteville area, and man, I love it. It's a lot of high quality talent. It's a lot of high level skill. Big guys, a lot bigger than when I was in high school. So it's I'm loving the area, man. I can't complain at all. God is good.
So, yes, he is, and obviously you got to see how kind of the old conferences were, and this year we have a whole realignment. Just kind of generally, what was your takeaway on realignment? Do you think the conferences kind of worked out the way you thought they would in your area, or were there some things you might want to see differently?
There were definitely some things I wanted to see differently. I'm a bit of a contrarian sometimes, so I A lot of people. I was told a lot of people actually like the conferences. I don't, but
Okay.
I mean, who am I? I mean, I can't change them. But I'm really. I hate to say this, but I don't. I'm really not looking forward to the most the Eastern Sand Hills Conference. It's just, and I've been told this by anonymous coaches. It's probably the weakest conference in the state. Just as far as complete competition. I mean, you have 71st, but
Right.
uh, that's a given. You know what I'm saying? That's a storied program, and we know what they've given for the last 4 or 5 years. So, but hey, we're here. So
We are here. And there could be changes at mid-alignment 2 years from now, and then this will all probably change again 4 years from now when someone else has a new idea. So
yeah.
that's one thing about the sports this day is like these things are always constantly changing. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Either get with it or get gone.
right. Well, let's start with the Mid-South 7A, 8A. So this one has Jack Britt from Fayetteville. They also have Pine Forest from Fayetteville in 7A. Overhills is in 7A from Harnett County. Richmond, the other 7A school from Richmond County, obviously. Then you have Hope County and Pinecrest. So this one's kind of like the mixture conference, right? So you have a couple schools from Fayetteville, then some from the surrounding counties. What was your first takeaway on this conference?
My first takeaway was it's tough. I do think it's a tough conference. Just having Pinecrest and Richmond alone. However, I did make a bold prediction because I've been to Jack Britt practices. I've seen what they have. They've returned a lot of juniors from last year. They have Javante Brooks, the Charleston Southern commit, and they also have Jaleel Parker, the Liberty commit. Two guys who can really get it done on both sides of the field, especially in Jaleel Parker. But it's going to be tough for them. But I did make a strong prediction that they can come out with the win in the conference.
Yeah, I'm with you on Jack Britt. I think they're going to be very good. I won't pick them over Richmond, but I think Jack Britt's going to be maybe an 8-win team this year, a 7-win team this year. They're going to be a very good program this year. As far as the what do you make of like the travel in this one? Do you think the travel with this one kind of makes sense?
No, and that's my biggest, I guess you could say, issue with the conferences. The traveling is just, it's kind of out of hand, especially when you start going into the extras and the money situations of each school. It's kind of it's inconvenient to a lot of the schools, especially when you start to get to the schools that don't have as big as budgets as the 7A and 8A schools. So yeah, like I said, there's not really much you can do about that, but that's my biggest takeaway.
And what's your read on Pine Forest this year? I know they have a new coach for the first time in a while. They got Kevin Inman, who I think used to be at Fairmont. What's your read on that program this year?
In my opinion, Pine Forest will have a rebuild year.
Okay.
Before last year, the last 3 years they won the conference and they were the team to beat. Now I do believe that they will take a step back. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I've been told by a few people in my preseason predictions that they didn't like that because they thought it was kind of a slight. But I mean, they don't. They're kind of they all summer long they were trying to figure out a quarterback situation. They lost. I mean, anytime you lose a coach who's been there for almost 30 years, 30 or more years, you're going to have a setback. And it's just it's a program rebuild, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But
no, it'll
take a year or two for them to get back in conversation and really be that team that they were a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I know these aren't necessarily your schools, but between Richmond and Pinecrest, which direction are you leaning between those two? I know you're picking Jack Britt, but out of those two, which way are you leaning?
I saw that Pinecrest had a lot of returners. I think Richmond does as well. I think it was a receiver and a quarterback that I really like from Richmond Senior. So we'll see. I'm loving the roster over there at Richmond, but I do believe the most competition will come from Richmond and Jack Britt.
Yeah. Okay. I'm with you. Let's look forward to actually, before we leave this conference, who are some underrated players in this conference that you want to shout out?
Underrated.
From Jack Britt or Pine Forest, maybe.
I would say Emorian Towns and Eric Payne. They're both running backs. and they can both play both sides of the ball. I
Mm-hmm.
think when it comes to the safety position and the running back position for Morian Towns, I think that's a guy that a lot of schools they might scout for him, but just because he had great production in his sophomore season last year. But I do believe, I'm sorry, his junior season last year. But I do believe this year he'll definitely take a step. He'll take a step up and have big production for Jack Britt.
I feel like this 2025 season for Jack Britt has been like part of like a multi-year plan they've had because Coach Randolph went pretty young with the team for the past couple of years and he encouraged that competition. And I feel like I feel like we're going to see that all kind of pay off. So I'm definitely with you on Jack Britt.
Yes.
Let's look over to that Tri-County 6A, 7A conference. This was not one of my best graded conference names. I feel like there's so many conferences that you could call Tri-County because there's three counties involved, but that's aside from the point. But this one has Grays Creek, Scotland, Terry Sanford in 6A, then 7A, Cape Fear, Lumberton, and Pernell Sweat. I think this one's kind of interesting too. I think I'm big on Terry Sanford this year. I know they didn't kind of look too great at the Jamboree, but I think that the Jamboree environment's not really conducive to a quarterback like Jacob Moore, who can really kill you with his legs. I'm big on Terry Sanford this year. I'm big on Cape Fear again. And Scotland's a problem. But first, I'm curious to hear about your thoughts on Grays Creek.
Grays Creek, they are like a Swiss Army knife, and I do believe last year. I don't have the numbers at the top of my head, but last year they had 3 running backs that averaged nearly 1,000 yards last season, and I think that's the biggest thing for them. I don't know what the quarterback situation is like. I know they graduated a quarterback last year, so now they're trying to get the passing game going. But Coach Sherman isn't the biggest passing coach,
right?
But that ground and pound is going to be serious this year once again. I do think they have a lot of returners, just like Jack Britt. They have a lot of returners, and that core running back core, when you have 3 running backs who can get you 100 yards a game in any given game, no matter who you're playing. I think that's going to be big for them, and I don't know if it's enough to stay alive in the conference. Just because like you said, it's interesting. I do have Cape Fear, Terry Sanford, and Scotland over them, but I do think it'll get them prepared for years to come. Just facing this type of competition, which is kind of similar to the United 8 last year.
Yeah, it is kind of similar to that one. I'm very interested in that Grays Creek team. You mentioned the running backs they bring back. I think they lost the linebacker Caraway to graduation. He was a good player. But I know that the top of this conference is going to be hard to break into this year, but I feel like that team could be kind of a dark horse this year.
Absolutely.
Let's hear your thoughts on Terry Sanford and Cape Fear, and which way are you leaning between these teams?
I've been going back and forth all summer.
I know it's tough.
And like you said, in the Jamboree, a Jamboree is not really the best environment for Jacob Moore, Terry Sanford's quarterback, just because, like you said, he's elusive. He probably has the best feet out of all quarterbacks in Fayetteville this year. I really like Terry Sanford. My main concerns are their size.
Yeah.
They don't have the same size as last year or the year before. I know now one thing Coach Mack over there at Terry Sanford talked to me about last week was size has always been an issue for them. However, they've still had 4 or 5 linemen, even coming off the bench, that is about 6'3", 250. That can still, get down and dirty when you need them to. But now they have a lot of sophomores and juniors, and a lot of them are 5'8", 5'9", a little taller than me, and maybe pushing about 250, 260. That's good, but you need that experience. And I do think the height and the size will make a difference. But then again, you have Jacob Moore, your quarterback, who can run away from almost anybody. So I'm really liking what they have over there. But Cape Fear, they do have one of the top running back talents in the state, up and coming talents in the state, junior Ty Phillips. Offers from Alabama, NC State, solid 4.2, 4.3 speed. When you have a running back like that, I don't really know what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
They have solid receivers and Marcellus Freeman and Chosen Win, and then they have Geronimo Sanchez, a 4-year starter at quarterback, who's seen it all and done it all. I mean, you have a program guys like that. I have Cape Fear winning the conference as
Okay.
of now, but we'll see.
Then the thing about it is, yeah, and I can see Cape Fear winning as well. But the thing about it is, Scotland County is just kind of like lurking there too, and they could. I mean, I could
Yes,
definitely see them winning any year. And I know that they have a freshman running back who's already getting Power 4 offers.
yes,
That's
yeah.
going to kind of make things interesting as well. Do you have any underrated players in this conference you want to shout out?
Underrated, underrated. He's not underrated, but I'm excited to see what he can do as a senior. But that's Justice Clifton for
Mm-hmm.
Terry Sanford, defensive
Yep.
end. He led the conference in sacks last year, 12 sacks. Probably the fastest defensive end in the conference. Man, it's hard to stop him coming around the edge. So I'm excited to see what he can do, especially as the main defensive guy. Him and Isaiah Williams on the defensive side.
Yeah, he was an all-state player for us last year, and he's pretty
Yes.
big too. Like
Yes.
6'3", 6'4", maybe.
Yes. 6'3", and he's gotten a little bit bulkier over the summer.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's kind of scary to hear that. Okay. All right. Well, let's go over to your favorite conference, the Eastern Sand Hills 5A 6A. So this one is Douglasburg, St. Paul's in 5A, E. Smith 71st, Southview, and Westover in 6A. I do want to ask you about St. Paul's. I know there might not be your area necessarily, but that team has some college talent, and for a 5A school, they might be the team that is the biggest threat to 71st. Would you think so?
Yes, and they believe so as well. Just because last year they were 10-win team last year.
Mm-hmm.
They've had the success, so they know what they're doing. Like you said, they have the college talent. I think for them, it's really going to be finding the weak spots for 71st. And especially with, you have generational talent in DeAndre Nance and Donovan Frederick, who's gone now. I think that's going to be interesting to explore the weak spots, finding the weak spots in the 71st's offense and also defense. And I think if they can take advantage of those, I think they'll be fine. But I still can't see anybody beating 71st in that conference.
I do want to dive into 71st. So we ranked them, I think, number 20 or 21 in the preseason poll. They weren't happy about that, but they were still they're still basically picked to go to the state championship game because they were the highest 6A East team. Obviously, there's still talent on that team, but it's hard to put them in the top 10 without DeAndre Nance and Donovan Frederick. Just what's your general thoughts on them this year, and how much of a drop off do you think it will be from last year?
I'm not mad at the rankings, to be honest. I don't have an issue with it. I do think it'll be a bit of a drop off, only because, like I said earlier, you don't have those two generational talents who are now at Campbell playing with each other. You don't have those guys anymore, and but you still do have Division I caliber talent.
Right.
So I think it'll probably drop off a level, but it wouldn't be as much of an issue as a lot of people around Fayetteville sees. I think when you have a guy like Jason Franklin who averaged 1,000 yards, who totaled 1,000 yards the last 3 seasons, and then you have a athlete, a Division I athlete like Sean Pone, I think everything's fine. You could put Sean out there in the slot. You can throw him in the backfield. He can play anywhere. He can play a little wildcat if he needs to. So I don't think the drop off is as dramatic as a lot of people think. But there will be a few growing pains just to try to get acclimated with a new quarterback. When you've had the same quarterback for 4 years, there's going to be a little bit of growing pains and a little bit of adjusting those first few weeks.
Yeah. And still, we ranked them 20 out of 400 schools. We're still very high on them. It's just hard, that we love DeAndre Nance and Jason Franklin. Not Jason Franklin. Shoot, on his name right now. Yeah, Donovan Frederick. It's the FRs that are messing me up.
Yeah,
Donovan Frederick and DeAndre Nance. They were just such amazing players. It's just hard to wrap your head around it until you see the guys replacing them. At quarterback, do you think it's going to be Josiah Nance this year, who stepped in DeAndre's brother in the state championship game?
No.
Okay.
Josiah is a receiver.
Okay.
Now I do know it's a quarterback competition going on amongst 2 to 3 quarterbacks. They do have 2 transfers. Romani Watson from Charlotte,
From West
and
Mecklenburg?
also
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
and Ben Cashin. He transferred in from Germany. So it'll be interesting. And the Cumberland County Jamboree is tonight, so I can really see them in game form. And we will have a decision by week 1.
Yeah, they'll have to make a decision by I guess.
Yeah.
And look, we'll touch on defense too. Xavier Gear, that guy just finds the ball. Like whether it's through tackles or coming up with fumbles, interceptions, he's going to be a major player on that defense in place of Frederick. Well, not really in place of him, but he's going to kind of take that mantle as the leader, I would guess. And John Archer's a guy we've been knowing about since he was a freshman. I feel like this might be the year where John Archer just like really, really takes that big jump as he's kind of older now, and a couple more years into the weight room. I can see John Archer taking a big jump. Do you kind of agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And same thing as the coaches say, he's a big baby. So I think now as the maturity starts to roll in, like you said, he's a little older. Oh man, John is probably by the end of this season, I am predicting that he'll be in the top 20 of defensive linemen in the state. I think he's going to be well sought after.
Yeah, he's got all the tools. So
yeah, absolutely.
Look forward to see what he does this year. Well, let's get your thoughts on the other teams in this conference. So Douglas Byrd is the other 5A. Then we also have E. Smith, Southview, and Westover. Just kind of run through all those. What are your thoughts on them?
Southview was interesting. They do have a new quarterback, and I'm loving the running back core. They have Christian Simmons coming back, and he did a pretty good job last year backing up Rashad Dockery. But they do have a quarterback now, and he has an interesting story. He used to be his name is Jamal Brown. He used to be an offensive lineman, and then he converted to a tight end, and now he's a quarterback. And yeah, man, they're talking pretty highly of him, man. He has a pretty good ball, so we'll see how he can carry them in the conference. I like E. Smith. Coach Tavell Williams, it's his second year now. He has his feet wet as head coach. And David Hickman and Nick Williams, I think, are going to do really well for them offensively. Defense, I think it'll be it'll be some missing pieces, but I do think the offense they'll have better production this year than they had in years past. But that second is kind of a toss-up. It's kind of a toss-up between Southview and St. Paul's.
Okay, I'm with you. And how about Westover? I know there was kind of like that late change in the offseason at head coach. What can you tell me about that?
I will monitor the Westover situation the same way I will monitor Pine Forest. And it's a rebuild season. And like you said, it was a late addition for head coach. Anytime you're getting a head coach in May, I mean, that's not really the best situation. And you have a lot of guys transferring leave. You had your best lineman leave, Makadra Latiker, who was at 71st now.
71st, right? Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, you have guys leaving after a coaching change late in the season. It's kind of hard to build. I mean, I'm not a head coach, never been a head coach, so I don't know what it's like to have to do that. But I can imagine it's hard to rebuild a team and try to get them to buy into your schemes and your plans on the season when you come in at the top of the summer.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one to overcome there. And then Douglas Byrd, they hired an alum this offseason to lead them, Dontre Brown, who was at Garner. What have you heard from him and them?
Well, Douglas Byrd, I think they'll kind of be the same that they've been in the past years. They'll struggle, and it's only because of production. They don't have the numbers. They've only, I think on their roster they have about 20, 25 players. if I'm correct. Last time I checked, they had 20, but before then they had 17 players on the depth chart. So I'm not too high on them, only because I want to see their numbers rise up. But we'll talk about that over the season. Just as they try to form a team and try to stay alive, even just in practices and games. I know you only need 11 guys at a time on the field, but I mean,
it's hard to make
numbers. Yeah, you need some numbers.
Yeah.
You need some numbers.
The cumulative effect of all the snaps and everything, it kind of wears on you throughout the season. So that's where that can come into play.
Once you get to week 7 or 8, and it starts to get like a little wonky there, and you don't have the numbers because guys getting hurt, everybody's banged up, so it starts to be a problem.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I think we covered all of your public schools, but I do want to ask you about Trinity Christian before we go. I know that they've had a couple of good seasons back to back, but that was a good senior class they had last year. So I want to hear from you about that team. What have you heard from them? Do you think they've rebuilt it all, or is it going to be kind of a little bit of a step back?
It'll be a step back.
Okay.
Man, it's kind of similar to 71st, but they don't have the numbers either. But when you have talent like Zayden Watson and Fonzie Smith and Elijah, and it's just a situation where you have the guys who watched them for the last 4 years, but it's now a question of if they can step in and be not the same, but just give some of the same effort and some of the same numbers that you had in years past. I do like Donovan Marshman, the brother of Dante Marshman, who went off to Fayetteville State last year. I really like Dontaria Austin, all-state linebacker. 147 tackles last year. I mean, he's probably
extremely hard hitter.
Yes, and
very
he's
hard.
A ball. He like you said about Xavier Gear, he finds the ball, and he's just smart. He's probably the smartest linebacker in the area, and I'm looking forward to seeing him. And I think it's going to take more than him. That they do have the Donzo twins, Baganli and Muhammad. They're sophomores now. They've been on the team since they were in 8th grade. And now that they have a couple years under their belt, they're both 6'4", over 215, 220. I mean, if they can really put up great production and kind of have breakout seasons, I think defensively they'll be fine, but offensively they'll have to find their niche.
Do you kind of see it shifting more to like a running focus this year? Because I think that's where the returners are, is at running back. And then obviously, with Elijah Olkey and all the receivers last year, it's going to be hard to just match that passing production that they had naturally.
Yeah, I think it'll be more of a run focus. I know they'll still try to pass the ball, but they have a young quarterback. His name is missing me at the moment, but they have a young quarterback, and I think just to get his feet wet, I think at first they'll be more run focused. But he has an arm. I will give him that. He has an arm, but you have to know what to do with it. So,
okay. Well, that'll be interesting to monitor. Well, James, I really appreciate you coming on today to tell me about your area. Again, James is a reporter for the Fayetteville Observer. Tell everyone where they can find you and find your work at before we leave here. And everyone just go ahead and give him a follow and read his stuff, because he does a good job down there.
Cool. Thank you, man. And you can follow me on socials at OGCook_, and you can follow our the Fayetteville Observer's 910 Preps page at 910 Preps on Twitter and all social platforms.
Awesome, man. Well, I look forward to hearing you, and best of luck here as we get the season started.
Thank you, man. Have a good one.
And thanks to James for talking to us about the Fayetteville area. One of the teams that we mentioned in the Fayetteville section was Pinecrest, because they're be going against some of the Fayetteville schools. And to talk about Pinecrest and the rest of Moore County is Jonathan Bym from The Pilot. Jonathan, thanks for doing this. And for anyone that might not have seen you on before, kind of tell everybody about yourself and where they can find your work at.
Yeah, so I'm Jonathan Bym. I'm in my sixth year covering high school sports for the Pilot newspaper. About 10 years covering the Sandhills region, so I'm pretty well versed in what's going on with the Sandhills, what's happened the last decade or so. Cover also Union Pines and Northmore, so that we have 3 public high schools, a couple privates to play 8-man football, but mostly a lot of our coverage goes to those 3 public schools. We're looking for coming off a really good season for high school football in Moore County. I had all 3 teams play a home playoff game, which was the first time ever in county history. So that's when you think about that, even if it was Union Pines didn't get that win in the first round of the playoffs, but it still was 3 home games. Kept me busy that first week of the postseason last year.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody's really wanting to build off of that.
Yeah. It's good to have those busy weeks, though, as the local guy, because that means that people are going to be reading for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I've got some trusty freelance people, Zach Saboth, helps me cover a little bit. He's helped me out the last couple of weeks while I've been away for personal stuff. And then Tim Hale does a great job with photos and everything. So we're looking forward to another year of really just trying to foot to the floor and to see what we can do coverage-wise for all of Moore County football.
Well, I'm excited for this year, and I do want to get into this Pinecrest team. So Pinecrest is in the new Mid-South 7A, 8A conference. Not a big fan of the name of this conference, by the way. It's kind of a side note, but come on, there could be any of these conferences could be a Mid-South conference.
Yeah, I think it was a nod to the past when it was Mid-South sort of encompassed a little bit, but there was other teams that I don't think Overhills was included in that group previously.
Yeah, so whatever. So it does have Pinecrest in Hoke County in 8A. If we were doing this, how we were doing it, where the individual classification teams kind of played against each other in a way in the conferences for seeding purposes, I would say things looking good for Pinecrest, but obviously it doesn't really matter anymore that we're doing RPI only. So Richmond, Pine Forest, Overhills, and Jack Britt are the 7As. I think most people agree that the conference will probably come down to Pinecrest or Richmond, although I think that Jack Britt is going to be a factor here as well. I just want to hear from you on this Pinecrest team. How is it shaping up this year compared to some years in the past? This is one of the better programs in the state.
Yeah, I think it's year 4 with Nick Edens. So you basically had everybody in the program has been coached by him, or he's been the head varsity coach while they've been at school. I think it's one of those things you saw what they did offensively last year, and even on defense, they had really standout players. Will Miller in the secondary was a Shrine Bowl kid, and you had some guys like Zamir Spencer in the backfield. You had a lot of the versatility in that offense, especially with that offensive line. And then you talk about Will Miller, and you got Zamir Spencer. They graduate along with 4 of the 5 starters on the offensive line. So right there, you're already looking at a sort of a step back. I think it's still going to be a good Pinecrest team. I think they're going to be well coached. They're going to be disciplined. They're going to run the ball still, because I still feel like they had a lot that's moving up. But the pieces that graduated, I forgot to mention Elijah Melton, who was the 6'5" big target on the outside. He graduated as well, along with a couple other key receivers. So it's like, who's going to be the next ones up? So I think you talk about they got return Andrew Mello onto that offensive line. So he's the one returner back. So I think he's going to sort of shore up some things. And they've got their offensive line. Defensive line looks pretty set. A guy named Brady Clemens was a sophomore last year. For some of his freshman year, he was really standing out. So I think those are guys on the trenches that are going to really establish the tone up front for Pinecrest. However they do, it's going to sort of go through how those guys play. You got Tanner Corwin in the linebacker group, which I wrote 2 years ago on that linebacker group. They had a couple guys. One guy was an All-State, or was an East-West guy. One guy was a Shrine Bowl guy. And it's over the years, it's just been like, okay, there's always that one guy coming back that's going to be moved from maybe an edge rusher or just one of those little nickel backs that really comes in and then fills in at the middle linebacker, the captain of the defense. And that's Tanner Corwin. He was that guy 2 years ago, was that, the baby face little sophomore out there. Now he's sort of being the mover and shaker on that defense. The secondary is going to be a little bit of a spot where they got to figure out some things. Corbin Dallas is the only returner. He led the team in interceptions last year, but trying to figure out who's going to be pinning down those receivers on the outside, as well as who's going to help out with coverage over the top is going to be a key. Bringing a junior quarterback that has had very minimal snaps at varsity. That's Najee Gillis at quarterback. Chris Najim was the team's leading rusher touchdowns-wise last year. He had 22 touchdowns. Yep. And so he comes back. So there's at least that kind of continuity. But that's where there's a lot of questions. And I think when you look at what they start, you talk about the RPI, and Pinecrest already said we're going to try to bulk up our RPI. I mean, we're going to play Cleveland, we're going to play Southview, play Davie County, play Union Pines in non-conference, and then jump into this. And they also will have Scotland, which that's going to be a really tough. That's a tough 6A team right there. So that's going to be their non-conference to get them ready for Mid-South play. But they really got to sort of bolster what they can with their RPI by playing these teams, win or lose. I think that's what their mindset was at for scheduling those teams.
So with all the changes from last year, are you seeing this as a realistic opportunity to defeat Richmond on October 31st, or do you think Richmond is going to be kind of a decent favorite in that game when it comes to it?
So that's, I mean, we're 12 weeks away, 11 weeks away.
Right. Anything can happen. Injuries can impact.
Yeah. So I think Pinecrest, the 2 years they beat Richmond back to back to win the conference, the St. Hills Athletic Conference, those were two of the better Pinecrest teams. Last year was a weird one. I thought Pinecrest and Richmond were very evenly matched, and it was just game got moved to a Thursday. Rain was still a factor in that one, and I think it was just one of those things mentally when you got 14 to 18-year-olds playing football, you never know what's going to happen. So I think last year was probably the most evenly matched teams were facing each other. I think Richmond would have a slight edge, I would say, right now. I mean, I think with what Richmond brings back, Pinecrest, I think it's like you said, it was Richmond, Pinecrest, and I'd throw Jack Britt in there. Those three teams are the three front runners. It just depends on how those games shake out throughout the regular season. I would say Richmond maybe has that upper hand right now, being in year two with Coach Dennison. But right now, I'd say if it were their play right now on this coming Friday, I'd say Richmond by a touch. But you never know what could happen injuries wise or just emergence of players that Pinecrest or Richmond didn't expect to have.
Yeah, it's so hard to forecast from now, but that's probably the direction I'm leaning towards as well. And I think that I'm a big believer in Richmond this year. I think that they bring back so much from last year's team, which was already so impressive. I can kind of see a situation where Jack Britt ends up finishing second as well over Pinecrest, just because that team brings back so much. But never know. I mean, this is going to be one of the toughest battles at the top of a conference, I think. So I'm very fascinated to see how it shakes out. Any other general thoughts on this league before we go down to Union Pines?
No, I would say you're right. I think I went ahead and did my football forecast last week. I said Pinecrest is I'm going to say a 7-3 team. I think, and that Jack Britt game is in Jack Britt. Those were historic battles back in the day. I mean, Pinecrest and Jack Britt always were good battles. Coach Rudolph does a good job. Randolph does a good job down there at Jack Britt. I think it's just, you never know how it can sort of shake out with there. I think I'd say right there, that's the battle for second and third with Jack Britt and Pinecrest right now. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't sleep on, Overhill's lost a good bit of the talent they had in the past. So I'm not sure how they'll sort of shake out. Pine Forest going through sort of a shuffle with the coaching staff as well, or early on in a coaching change. So it's like, we'll see how those two pan out. But I think it's right there. Those three. Hope County, they're always a physical team. I mean, even though there's years where that coming off the bus, they look really good, and then teams are able to take advantage of them. So I think we'll see how that shakes out. But I think, I know Pinecrest is sort of hoping that they can be one of the 24 that makes it into the 8A state playoffs. It's really going to come down to.
I'd say they have a good shot at that. They have a good shot at that, I would say.
Okay.
I think that they'll probably be, that minimum top 16, I would think, because the truth is, 8A has some strong teams at the top in football, but it's really not that strong. If you look at, the Quad City Conference in Wake County, and then kind of the lower tier 8A schools in Charlotte, there's a lot of schools that, aren't too good right now. So, I think Pinecrest is certainly going to be a playoff team.
And I think sort of see how they'll shake out too, East-West, because they haven't played.
Yes, that's another element
in the West. Yeah, they're not sure. They haven't played those teams in forever. I think that maybe just sort of getting to see playing a Davie. I know Davie's sort of trying to build back to what they were, but trying to get sort of established with them and sort of seeing how you sort of stack up the Davie when you come play.
Yeah. Okay, so switching over to a well-named conference, the Carolina Pines 6A. This one, I believe, had an A+ for me in terms of conference names. Very good name. It definitely fits the area. Union Pines is in this conference with Harnett Central, Lee County, South Johnston, Southern Lee, Triton, West Johnston, Western Harnett, Look, I think Harvard Central is going to be a big deal in this conference. They look really good in preseason. Lee County is one of the programs that we expect to be pretty good year in and year out. Do you think Union Pines can fight up into this top tier that I'm seeing in this conference?
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, I think they're right there behind those two. They could probably give those two a really good challenge. I think as long as this team offensively, they got to figure out some stuff going through non-conference. What I'd really like to see is see this defense really set the tone early. When they talk about they go to Westover, they got Pinecrest, which is going to be an uphill battle, but I think they can show a little bit better show than they did last year. I think that was something when they finished the regular season sort of limping after they beat Scotland. I think this defense is one of the more energetic, more vivacious groups I've ever covered. Talk about groups that get through summer workouts and it's 90-some degrees out and they're still doing up downs. They're doing hundreds of up downs after just to it's sort of a bump in the chest a little bit, what that defense wants to do. So I like to see what they can do to really set the tone. The offense has a lot of guys that are trying to figure out where they're going to work in, how are they going to fill in their role. They've got one of the best H-backs, sort of tight ends, receivers in the region in Hayne Tobias. So trying to figure out how they can work him in, work some of these younger guys in with the offense. But they've got a couple of non-conference games. So I mentioned Pinecrest in week 3. They've got Eastern Randolph at home. So that's like they're going to get some sure tests. I think it's going to be something that when they come out of it, they'll be ready to challenge this conference, including the Harnett Centrals and the Lee counties.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated to see the direction that Till takes this program in. I think, last year is probably as good as it can get, for a first-year coach at Union Pines. And I think that, people over there have a right to be happy after how last year went with Till. So now it's about stacking years now and how can the program keep taking steps. And fascinating to see it, especially, with a guy like Hayne Tobias, that's gonna help you out. I think it's such a unique player. And anytime you get a unique player, it's definitely going to make things a little bit more fun to game plan for and a little bit harder for other teams to game plan against you. Do you have any general thoughts on this conference before we move on?
Yeah, I think it's going to be it's going to sort of revive the former Tri-County, that 3A that was what Union Pines was in before it went to the split Sand Hills Athletic Conference 7A or 3A, 4A. Already getting them all mixed up with the classifications. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be a good vibe to get some matchups back. Maybe they've been playing some of these non-conference teams in non-conference like the Tritons and everything. So I think, year 2 under Brian Till, he sort of has talked about. I asked him how they handled the success from last year because last year, like you said, was really a big step forward in a first year with anybody. I think now it's like they're now going from pats on the back in the hallway saying, "Good, y'all are doing a good job." Now it's like, hey, now the pressure's on to do that again. Yeah. And then some. They don't have that whole, well, we weren't that good of a program, and now we're doing well to sort of back on what they have to sort of show up every Friday night. And I think this is where that mentality, that mindset the team has really been built in this summer. I think they got a lot of battles, especially quarterback with 3 quarterbacks with Ryan Green, Ian Hicks, and Vida Blue. Vida Blue is going to be a really good quarterback. He's only a sophomore. So once these 2 seniors graduate, I think it's going to be his for the final 2 years. And interested to see what Coach Till can do with him and a lot of these other really talented offensive players. But I think Union Pines, is a top tier. They're going to be right there, finishing 3rd or 4th at worst, I think, in this conference. But I think they just can't let their guard slip like they did last year, losing to Southern Lee in the penultimate week of the season, right the week before Pinecrest. So I think that's something that maybe they learned. Hey, we can't take a week off and look ahead to next week because of that. If you do this conference, even though it's not quite as stacked as it was with the Sand Hills, I think it's still a very talented conference, especially with the 2 Johnston County schools.
Again, we're joined by Jonathan Bym of The Pilot. He covers Moore County high school sports. And the last school, Jonathan, is Northmore. They are now in the Four Rivers 3A, 4A conference with Eastern Randolph, Northwood in 3A. Northmore is also in 3A, as well as 4A's Jordan Matthews, Southwestern Randolph, and Iwari Charter. This is also another conference name I didn't like. They got mad at me for the grade I gave it. But look, guys, there are rivers all over North Carolina. Four Rivers could be the name of like any conference. Okay. So I'm glad you brought that up. More unique than this. Go ahead.
I'm glad you brought that up.
If you want to jump on this name, go ahead, please.
Okay, so I will say, I live right in sort of the smack dab middle of this. It sort of covers from the 910 to the 336 to the 919. I'm still trying to figure out where these 4 rivers are. I mean, obviously there's the deep river that runs through eastern Randolph, Ramseur, eastern half of Randolph County, through northern Moore County. There's Uari River, which runs.
They actually sent me a map of the rivers.
Okay, well, you have to send me that after, but I think, yeah.
My thing was like, I'm not disputing that there are rivers there.
Yeah.
I'm saying that there are rivers everywhere in the state.
Yeah.
Like,
so, I was trying to figure out what the 4 rivers they were mentioning, and maybe
I'll send you the map. I got a map from the conference president.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, so I paddled on most of the rivers in this area. So I was trying to think if they're mentioning the Haw River or something. That's the side.
I think it's the Haw River. I think it might be the Haw River.
Okay, gotcha. So that with Deep River and Uari River and somewhere else probably Little River maybe.
Yeah. So football, Northmore has been a emerging kind of program, smaller program. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on them. Obviously, they've had a couple of good classes with seniors in it who have moved on now. So I'm curious, what's your thoughts on them this year in 2025?
Yeah, I'll say last year was sort of the back end of 2 straight years of really big, really production-heavy senior classes graduating. So I think this is going to be another. We saw at the beginning of last year, I think they sort of got off to a slower start than many people were expecting because Northmore had been to the 3rd and 4th round in the playoffs for those previous seasons. And it was like, oh, well, Northmore is sort of struggling to get a win. It took them a couple weeks getting into the conference season. I would say we might be in the same sort of boat this year. I think it's going to be who they have. I mean, they're going to go to Fike in week 1. It's a 5A school, so it's basically set in like what Northmore was playing previously as I guess Spike was a 3A previously, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so jumping up to that, a big classification, they're going to be a little pass heavy. So I think that those teams are sort of the ones that sort of confused, where we gave Northmore troubles in the past, especially if they had some athletes on the edge. Northmore's still going to stick with this same old, the 2 tight end split back with a fullback. Nobody's going to be out wide. It's going to be all fault between the tight ends, basically. So those guys are really trying to figure out how they are going to figure out who's going to go where. Striker Murray is back at running back, along with a couple other guys. Martez Johnson was a really standout secondary guy in the secondary, and now he's going to be getting some snaps in the backfield as well. So Northmore, I think they went through a little wave of, okay, we had 60-some kids in the program, and now it's like probably a little less than 50. And so now they're going to see a lot more 2 platoon guys. Probably have one of the best linebackers in the state as a sophomore, and Blake Pennington. He had 110 tackles last season. He's going to see some time at tight end as well. He's athletic. I think he's going to be a little stronger. So I think it's one of those things. They're not going to throw it a ton. I think what I saw, heard you talking with some of the other guys about schools that if they throw it 2 times in the game, you're going to take the under. And Northmore is going to be one of those teams. But they want to be one of those teams that can, if they do throw it, they want to be able to hurt you with it. And that's what they've really been working on with some additions to the coaching staff. But I think Northmore is it's going to be a little bit of a struggle trying to get in this, especially in this conference when you sort of say Northwood and Eastern Randolph are 3As, and it's like that's Northwood was a really tough 3A matchup, or tough matchup in conference last year for them. Eastern Randolph is Eastern Randolph, so I think we'll see what Northmore can do. I think they're going to be one of these teams where they're going to try to sort of scrounge up some wins when they can, but it's not going to be quite as prevalent as they have been in the past.
Yeah, might take a little bit to get used to this new format. Eastern Randolph is a kind of a different level from what they were dealing with before. I know that they had Cummings and Southeast Alabama came on late there in that conference, but Eastern Randolph is one of these programs where it's just kind of like always good. It's never really a question with them. Like it doesn't really matter like who graduated or whatever. Like they're always going to win 8-9 games every year. Yeah. So it's gonna be fun to get used to that, being in the conference with that team. And but look, I have all the faith in the world in Coach Caruth and to see him kind of take this program to the next level here. Yeah,
I think, and so they've got the RPO, run people over mindset mentality. And when talking with him last week in the preseason interviews, he was saying this is going to be a lunch pail type of group, which is basically just solidifying what they bring or what they mean on the football field. So I think it's going to be one of those things. This group might not have the success right on the first couple of weeks, but I think week 2 or 3, 4, something's going to click, and they're going to look a lot more like what Northmore's typically been.
Awesome. Well, Jonathan, thank you again for joining us. And again, where can people find your work and find you on social media?
Yeah, so we're at thepilot.com. We've already got top games, top players, my football forecast, season preview, some scrimmage stuff already put up online, along with Zach Savoth, who's helped me out while I've been away with the baby. So we're going to try to keep on filling up some stuff the next couple of days before season starts on Friday. I'll miss week 1, but I'll jump right back into week 2 with the big one, Union Pines and Pinecrest at Union Pines. And I've got social media, just at Twitter, X, whatever it is now. I'm on there pretty frequently. So
good. Well, Jonathan, again, I appreciate it. Best of luck for you back at home with the new baby. Congratulations on that. It's very exciting. Yeah, and we'll be hearing from you this season. And really appreciate you coming on again today. Next, we're going to talk to Chris Stiles from the Robesonian about Robeson County. We're now joined by Chris Stiles, the editor at the Robesonian. Chris, you just became the editor during the off season here. Tell me about that kind of change and going from sports editor to the full editor of the newspaper.
Yeah, definitely a lot more news responsibilities. Still doing sports somewhat full time right now, as well as we're in the hiring process, trying to get a sports reporter in. But I'll still be around sports some, even once that happens. So enjoying it so far. So and definitely honored for the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm sure. Even when you do get a sports guy, you're still probably going to have your nose in it. So you probably still love it and everything. So that's good. So realignment this year, we have a bunch of new conferences, new classifications. What was your main takeaway from how the Robeson County schools were impacted by realignment?
Yeah, so it's interesting. You kind of get Lumberton and Pernal Sweat are in the Tri-County Conference with they've been a conference opponent of all those schools at some point in the past. Terry Sanford, Cape Fear, Scotland, and Grace Creek. And kind of the same thing with Red Springs and Fairmont. South Brunswick's a new thing, but I mean, they were kind of on an island over there and had to land somewhere. But everybody else in that conference is a familiar opponent. And then St. Paul's, on the other hand, has never been in a conference with any of the schools in there. So, which is Southview, E. Smith, Westover, and 71st. And I might be leaving somebody out, but so kind of a mixed bag there. And it will definitely be interesting to see, how well these conferences are competitive beyond football, even in some of the other sports. But that's definitely something to watch as the new school year gets underway.
I wonder if St. Paul's being a part of that Eastern Sandhills 5A, 6A is kind of a side effect of the way that they did the order of realignment. So they came up with the all the conferences before the playoff system. And I think when the conferences were made, they were trying to pair like classification schools with each other. So Douglas Byrd out of Cumberland County, they needed a 5A pair because they're the only 5A in Cumberland County. Yeah. So they might have thought the St. Paul's was the natural pair for them because the way we were doing it was we would always have at least two in the conference for the most part, and there would be a special rule for how they would qualify for the playoffs. But since then, we got the playoff information, and it doesn't even matter. All that stuff doesn't even matter anymore. So it's kind of interesting. I'd be curious if that would have been the conference they were in if we did it in reverse. But hey, St. Paul's. Well, we'll start with St. Paul's. So obviously, they're losing the quarterback this year. Theo Setzer was a really good player for them. But I look at this team and I just see so much talent returning. Yeah. What's your general sense of them? Do you think they're going to be as good this year? Because I'm kind of thinking that they will be.
Yeah, I think so. You mentioned Theo Setzer. Now he's at West Point, but pretty much everybody else in the core of that team, as far as the most significant contributors, is back. So, Joshua McBride was a 1,600-yard rusher last year. Ty Purcell and Malachi Locklear out on the perimeter offensively. And those are a couple guys that are actually going to play both ways. And then defensively, really good D-line with Antoine McCoy, who's a national recruit at this point, entering his junior season. I think he's up to 7 or 8 as of this recording, up to 7 or 8 powerful conference offers and some others beyond that. So, and then Dejon Roberts was actually Roberts County Defensive Player of the Year last year he'll be on that line as well. Josiah Bryant, real hard-nosed linebacker. And then I mentioned Purcell and Locklear. They'll be key in the defensive secondary as well. So, yeah, still a really good football team. Be interesting to see. I mean, I think this could be one of those situations where they don't win their conference because 71st is in their conference. Right. But at the same time, they're still one of the better teams in their own classification. So, and that's not to say maybe they couldn't play with 71st, but that was, hypothetically, I think that's a reasonable possibility. That scenario plays itself out.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So, I think the defense returns 9 starters from last year. Does that sound right to you? Okay, so I was thinking about that because they're in this conference with all these 6A teams. 71st obviously is the name everyone is going to think about, but Southview's had some really good seasons, and Westover is also a bigger school. Mm-hmm. I was kind of wondering, just by the fact that they have to play all these schools, I wonder if that'll even help them out a little bit more this year when they get to the playoffs. The fact they've already seen a team like 71st, really, like nothing in the playoffs can really surprise you after that, right?
Right. I mean, it's again talking in hypotheticals here, but it's conceivable where they go to the 3rd, 4th, 5th round of the playoffs and they still haven't played their toughest game as far as in the playoffs because they already played 71st. So, that definitely can help them. And this coming off a year where they won the conference in the previous alignment, but then lost in the first round to East Duplin. And talking to them, that loss has stuck with them big time. So they're very motivated after that, even as they also carry momentum from the conference championship last year.
Awesome. Well, let's get into your bigger schools there. So Purnell, Sweat, and Lumberton are in the Tri-County 6A, 7A. I'm still learning all the conferences. So, they're a couple of the bigger schools in that conference. I think Cape Fear is the other 7A with them. The conference also has Terry Sanford, Scotland County, and Grace Creek. What are your thoughts on these two programs heading into this season?
So Lumberton, I think, so they've gone from winless 3 seasons ago to a 2-win team to a 4-win team. So they're kind of quietly starting to improve and build a little bit. And this is Torius Baker's 2nd year. And, a lot of times teams really take a big step forward and that's the coach's 2nd year. So I think that's fairly possible. Now, that is a tough conference that you mentioned, but, a good group of skill players. I've been impressed with Jaden Graham watching practice and their scrimmage at running back, as well as Demequan Powell. Lonnie Porter's a sophomore quarterback, but he's about as experienced as a sophomore could be at the varsity level, not just in this sport, but across the board. Good basketball player as well. Mm-hmm. And then Reggie Bush is kind of their, multi-position guy offensively. They've used him at wide receiver, at running back, etc. Last year, and I would imagine that continues. And then defensively, a couple good linebackers, Brandon Regan and Wyatt Bullard, and a good line with Israel Perkins, Colin Hill, Jonathan Cox, and Braylon Jones should all be key contributors there. So, and this is a team that the core is still kind of a lot of sophomores and juniors, even as some of these guys are returning starters. So kind of a young team that could develop into something that's a lot more competitive than the Lumberton teams of the last few years. Purnell Sweat is an interesting team in that they had 24 seniors, I think, last year. And so, a lot of times you lose a group like that at the graduation and then you're really young the next year. They actually have another group of about the same number of seniors this year. So, but a lot of those guys were behind those seniors last year. So some of them, there are some returning starters, but a lot of them are first-time starters. Offensively, Aiden Locklear, quarterback, kind of took the job mid-season last year, emerged as the guy. But I think now going through a whole offseason and a preseason as the starter, I think will help him a good bit. Some good receivers on this team with Sean Locklear and Javen Lovett. They'll kind of be running back by committee a little bit, at least at first, I think, in that, they had several guys that got carries last year behind a graduated starter. And so it'll be interesting to see kind of who emerges there. And then Pernell Sweat the last few years has always had, a real big guy on the offensive line, and Jody Freeman, the best example now, a D1 player.
Mm-hmm.
That guy this year, Coach Josh Deese is really high on Hunter Clark, and he's a big leader for them up front. And they think they're going to have a really good offensive line. When Pernell Sweat's been competitive, that's in the trenches is kind of where they've made the difference over the years. So, and then defensively, some promising guys on the defensive line: Adam Oxendine, Jackson Jacobs, Joshua Deese, the son of Coach Josh Deese. James Sweat is a big leader for them at linebacker, and Nikolai Lambert had a pretty good year last year at defensive back, and he's back. So it'll be interesting to see where that team goes as far as, it's almost hard to predict because they're an experienced team in terms of age, but not as much in terms of varsity experience. So we'll be interesting to see how that goes for the Rams.
Yeah, those kind of teams are always hard to kind of get a pulse on before the season, but I think you'll find out pretty quickly what the deal's going to be there.
They open with St. Paul's, so they'll find out. That's very good.
Yeah, you'll find out very fast.
Yeah.
So your last two teams, Fairmont and Red Springs, are 4A this year. The 4A is the hardest thing to get used to, Chris, because 4A used to be like the biggest of the big. Right. Now when you say 4A, it's just like it's hard to disassociate that from what you've been used to. Yeah. But Fairmont and Red Springs are 4A. They're in the new Southeastern 3, 4A, 5A with that South Brunswick ad in there that we mentioned before. I want to start with Red Springs. I kind of think they have an opportunity this year to maybe kind of contend in this conference. I don't know if you agree with me, but Chase Boone, the quarterback, he's going to be a senior another year in the system, and his receiver Tawan Ellerby is as good as it gets in this state. He was an all-state player for us. What are your thoughts on this team?
Yeah, I agree. They should be very competitive. This senior group has kind of grown up with Coach Tim Ray. They won one game his first year when they were freshmen, and then I think 5 the second year, 4 last year, and now kind of poised for a big finish as seniors. And so you mentioned TJ Ellerby. He's phenomenal. So much speed, so much explosiveness, and is a wide receiver, but has carried the ball as the running back at times, plays defensive back, and returned 3 kicks for touchdowns last year. So he really can do it all. And then, you mentioned Chase Boone. I think a good up-and-coming quarterback for them. And then beyond TJ, they have a couple other good receivers, including Ernest Bratcher as a senior. And then Raymond Blue and Nazir Blackman are going to kind of emerge at running back. They've been behind Jakelson Mack, who graduated, and now we'll get their turn to shine, getting the bulk of the carries. So I think this could be an offense that and a good offensive line with Kamarion McBride and James Smith as well. So it's going to be an offense that could be potentially pretty good. And defensively, some of those same guys on the defensive line, as well as Demyron Cooper, as the ones I mentioned on the offensive side. And then I mentioned Blackman and Blue at running back. They'll be key at linebacker. We were talking about the difference in saying 4A. It's still obviously the schools are the same size, so it's still like the old 2A as far as a lot of guys going both ways. And one coach, not Red Springs, but one coach even said, "Hey, we're keeping that old 2A mentality." So, So, and then mentioned TJ Ellerby at defensive back, Ernest Bratcher as well, and Malachi Locklear there too. So, this is I think it's 20 seniors out of 31 players or 33 players on the roster or something like that. So very senior heavy. Whiteville will be obviously the big dog in that conference at least going into the season. But I agree that Red Springs should be competitive and should be right there in that league.
And I know for Fairmont, so last year they didn't win a game last year, but there is a new coach this year, Scott Loosemore, who's kind of been a long-time assistant, and he's coached in other places as well. So a very experienced guy. What's your first impressions of him leading Fairmont?
Yeah, I think he's going to bring some kind of stability into the program. He's just such an even keel guy that I think maybe that can rub off the players, and the team can kind of become a more steady and consistent version, and play up to its potential, maybe a little bit more. Obviously nowhere to go but up in a sense with having not won a game last year, but yeah, I mean, offensively they've got some weapons, and Javarian Brown, the junior quarterback that started some games as a freshman and started the whole season last year, so now he's got some experience on his side. Calvin Johnson listed as a running back, but plays everywhere. Good receiver in Jacob McCollum, and then I think an offensive line that has the potential to be improved this year from what it's been, with Gavin Mayers and Draylen McKee leading the way there. Defensively, Silas Gomez up front, Austin Hall and Robert McCoy key at linebacker, and then some good defensive backs: Trayvon Campbell, Tariq Leggett, Jason Hayes, and then Calvin Johnson plays some on that side as well. So, no matter what Fairmont's record is, oftentimes when they're playing somebody, one of the other county teams, talking to the opposing coach, they'll say, Fairmont's got athletes, so they're dangerous no matter, even last year that was said. They're always a team with some pieces, it seems like. It's just a matter of putting those puzzle pieces together and letting them play up to their potential.
And we've seen it been put together not too long ago, actually. I mean, they've had some really good seasons, at times, especially, in the last decade. I think I kind of shortchanged Loosemore. I want to go through his credentials here. So 36 years of coaching, 8 years in college. He's been a head coach at 2 different schools, I think, Eastern Guilford and Cedar Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think he's been a head coach since 2017. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. Did you talk to him about, what were some of the things that he's kind of learned the most over his just long career here?
Gosh, I mean, he's got a wealth of experience.
Right. This guy's probably like an encyclopedia.
Yeah. I mean, and you said, every level of football other than the NFL, basically. So, if you have a situation, he's probably seen it before.
Right.
And yeah, he's definitely seems to be trying to get some of that knowledge to his players and help them to really learn the game on a fundamental level.
Good. Well, Chris, I appreciate you joining me. Do you have any big predictions this year? Any kind of big hot takes about your area?
Not particularly, but
good. I like the even keeledness.
What's that?
I like the even keeledness. So big scorching hot takes.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this again and coming on here and telling us about the schools in Robeson County. I'll let you get back to your now even busier job as the editor there. We'll be hearing from you this season on our high school team postgame show.
Yep. I do want to plug real quick our pigskin preview section, which we're finishing up as we're recording this. So it'll be in the August 16th print edition of the Robesonian. So go out and get a copy. 4 pages on each local team. So a lot of good content.
Awesome. Well, Chris, again, I appreciate it, and best of luck with your coverage this year.
Yep. Thanks for having me.